Hey YouTube, it's Eric. I think this is me a really interesting video. I just found out this information recently, but um, there you guys should look into this. I'm gonna link another book added to the information I already linked in this video. But there was a big investigation in the 1930s called the Munitions Investigation that was led by Senator Nye in the United States. And the investigations investigated how, or the Senate investigation invested how DuPont and a bunch of other American munitions makers sabotaged the war effort. And the whole time during that trial, the lawyer for the DuPonts was William Donovan, a devout papal knight Roman Catholic who actually went on to found the CIA. You can see on Wikipedia, William Donovan is known as the founding father of the CIA. And so if the founding father of the future CIA was the lawyer for DuPont this entire trial, I just think it's kind of funny. And I found a picture of it, and I'm gonna give you some context on like how DuPont actually armed Hitler, they armed Mussolini, they armed pretty much the entire European continent during World War II, um, which is no coincidence. Okay, but here's the picture here that I found. Here it is: DuPont's and their lawyer at munitions probe. And you already seen here, Pierre DuPont on the left was on the cover of Time magazine. You see there, Pierre DuPont on the left here, Irene DuPont here in the center, and their counsel, General William J. Donovan, Wild Bill Donovan of World War II, and he was the head of the Office of Strategic Services at this time, which merged into the CIA. And here they are in New York during the Senate emissions hearing, Washington, D.C., December 4th, 1934. That should tell you something, guys. That DuPont is completely above the law. That they have William Donovan as their lawyer. Okay, here's a close up of it there. Okay, I'm gonna give you some more context on William Donovan. William Donovan, while he was before he founded the CIA, actually met with Adolf Hitler and Mussolini. It met with the Pope multiple times. He was given a papal medal of Saint Sylvester. Okay, and this shouldn't this doesn't surprise me ultimately because like DuPont's actually created a Catholic church in the 1850s in the United States, and that's disclosed in this book here that I linked in the description. It's a huge book called DuPont Dynasty Behind the Nylon Curtain by Gerald Colby. I recommend you check it out. But I'm just gonna give you some. I'm gonna read from this in the Dollar in the Vatican and read to you actually from like the CIA's own website on William Donovan, just to show you like the context that was going on while this photo was taken. And actually, you know what? You can find a picture of. Let me see if I can find this. This was in the book, but Irene DuPont during the 1934 Senate munitions hearings was smoking a pipe. Like literally, like he's blowing smoke out with the pipe. Let me see if I can find that picture. Yeah, I'm gonna find that in the book. Actually, here's another picture of here with them with William Donovan. Literally, the picture is of I think it's Irene DuPont, and he's literally smoking a pipe, blowing smoke into the faces of like the senators and the congressmen that are investigating this the whole committee. It's literally just a mockery. Munitions. Bear with me a second. I just want to see if I can find this photo on the internet. I have to find it in the book. Why is it saying motions? Okay, I'll find that in the book. But yeah, there's the photo here of them. Okay, William Donovan, Pierre, and Irene DuPont. Okay, and you see here, and as early as 1925, DuPont had illegally been smuggling arms into the Mudkin warlords in Manchuria, who paid well for DuPont's willingness to violate an imposed embargo. 1928, a contract with Poland for 300 tons of powder per year for 12 years was landed only through bribes, politely termed, quote, commissions. And guys, the head of Poland at this time was a Roman Catholic named Podolsky. You can read about that in Avro Manhattan's book, The Vatican of World Politics. You see here, the contract was landed through bribes, politely termed, quote, commissions, quote, in order to get this. Colonel Taylor's, DuPont's European salesman, advised the Wilmington headquarters, quote, "We will have to pay a 7% commission on which 2% be paid in its entirety the day of the signing of the contract," end quote. 2 weeks later, on February 3rd, the Home Office replied, quote, "You may be sure in the event that you conclude a deal along the lines indicated in your letter of January 18th, that I promptly remit by cable the amount involved to pay the 2% commission so that there will be no delay. 5 months later, a DuPont agent in Poland by the name of Quale landed a $1.8 million sale. DuPont executive A. Gorman ecstatically wrote Taylor from Wilmington, quote, Mr. Claus' commission to the 1,000-ton order contract was 7%, or approximately $126,000. Upon signing the contract, even before we received the Polish notes, we had made advance payment on commission to Claus of $30,000. You are fortunate to have Mr. Claus as an agent, as he is a man who is very well connected and thoroughly understands what must be done in order to secure business. And look at this here, guys. You've seen here the Chinese dictator Chiang Kai-shek, who is actually fully supported by the Vatican and the Catholic Church because he was uh, fighting a war against the Chinese communists, and this is right in harmony with the Vatican's communist witch hunt at this time. You see here in China, DuPont powder was sold to Chiang Kai-shek. Again, he was on Time Magazine. I covered that in my video on Time Magazine. So DuPont powder was sold to Chiang Kai-shek forces in similarly soiled circumstances. Quote, N.E. Bates would suggest we do not pay any other commission except 7.5% Preston Wilk dyestuffs in Wilmington. DuPont headquarters cabled Taylor on September 23rd, 1929, quote, DuPont Dyestuff's office, Shanghai, China, will advance all prices at plant 5% for distribution as follows. 4% for the Chinese Army, Nanking. The commission was settled at 4% Chinese Army, Nanking, 1% Colonel de Fremery, a Dutch mercenary. Quote, we will advise at base to settle definitely on the basis quoted, end quote. In Shanghai, also bribes were paid. Dr. Nolting, head of the DuPont offices there, cabled, quote, anyways, present will have to be given to various parties in China New Year and overpriced we can get them, and the overpriced we can that the overpriced we can be used for this purpose. End quote. In 1929, DuPont had full-time powder agents in Estonia, Holland, Latvia, Poland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. In 1932, they contracted agents also in Belgium and Lithuania. Okay, and this while this is going on, guys, while the DuPont's lawyer here, William Donovan, is supposedly an antitrust attorney that is on guard for American corporations creating monopolies. Like, really? Okay, we're continuing here. During the 20s, nitrocellulose powder was sold in Spain, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and other parts of Europe. A. Felix DuPont and Harry Haskell rejected Noble Limited's protest, but Pierre DuPont, not wishing to anger his GM partners, surrendered the TNT and nitroglycerin market. Thereafter, DuPont, in conjunction with Noble Limited, which merged in 1926 as Imperial Chemicals Limited, had military sales agents sprinkled throughout Latin America and Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Uruguay, Venezuela. Other agents were located in Europe's Bulgaria and Romania and throughout southern Europe. Through their partnership, DuPont ICI sold nitrocellulose powder. Because you can see here, guys, that DuPont literally armed the whole war on both sides. DuPont sold nitrocellulose powder to Britain in 1929, 1930, 1931, and 1934. DuPont sold nitrocellulose powder to Belgium in 1931, Estonia in 1929, 1931, and 1934. Greece in 1933, Bulgaria in 1933, Holland in 1929 and 1933. He sold powder in Latvia in 1929 and 1934, Lithuania in 1930, 1932, and 1934, Poland in 1930, Romania in 1934, and Turkey in 1934. Smokeless powder was sold to Yugoslavia in 1929, 1931, and 1934. Okay, Romania in 1929 and 1934, Turkey in 1930 and 1935 as a smokeless powder. Latvia in 1934, Holland in 1934, Belgium in 1934, Estonia from 1930 to 1933, and Finland from 1932 to 1934. None of these munition sales were in violation of any American law, and such exports had the full support of Herbert Hoover during his 8-year tenure as Secretary of Commerce and 4-year term as President. Hoover, unlike Wilson, placed less emphasis on the political aspects of foreign policy and great emphasis on developing a system of overseas economic expansion, a system that included government regulation of credit to foreign nations and its relation to exports as, quote, part of our domestic progress in both socially and economically. See here. As president, as Secretary of Commerce and as president, Hoover encouraged private corporate expansion, consulting with the DuPonts, particularly over any disarmament program which threatened embargoes that would restrict their commodity or capital markets, even informing Colt Arms of the latest results in the arms race sweepstakes. And you could read a lot of like this book has it in The Dollar in the Vatican by Albert Manhattan. Explains how like Herbert Hoover sabotaged the Geneva Convention, working with Allen Dulles and uh, future CIA director and all the big munitions industries. Here's a picture of some of DuPont's like corporate subsidiary web. Here, these are all their subsidiaries that were going on during World War II. Just look at this. DuPont had assets all over the place: Poland, Sweden, Norway. See your Nazi Germany, Italy. I'm going to show you that they invested in with Mussolini in Italy. Right in heart, like actually when the Vatican created the Lateran Treaty, the fascist government paid the Vatican 100 million lire. That was then used to, like as that money compounded and very they used that compounded 100 million with all their other funds. The Vatican created the IOR Bank in 1942. Here, DuPont was invested with Krups in Germany, Czechoslovakia. They're invested there. They're invested in England with Imperial Chemicals. Yeah, IG Farben in Germany. You see, they invested in Mexico as well. Okay, the DuPonts took full advantage of this policy, developing not only an export market but an overseas capital market as well. In Mexico, they invested $312,000 and bought a 50% interest in Compañía Mexicana de Explosivos. And guys, that's why like the Catholic Church created a civil war in Mexico in the 1920s against Presidents Oberlong and Calles. Okay, essentially, Oberlong and Calles were inspired by the Mexican President Juarez, who was president when was president in the United States, and Juarez kind of went to war against the Catholic Church and went to war against foreign commercial interests. Okay, but the Mexican Constitution under Calles and Carranza and Oberlong, essentially they wanted to nationalize the Mexican oil fields. Okay, so to the U.S. corporations and the Catholic Church, that was like disaster. And as well, you see here the Duponts were invested in Mexico, and the Papal Knight Edward Doheny was very invested in Mexico as well, creating the Pan American Oil Company. Um, that's known today, I think, as Pex-Mex, still to this day. But the Duponts and the Dohenys were very invested in Mexico, including Albert Sinclair's oil company. That Sinclair was a Roman Catholic, and his wife, like Doheny, and himself were given papal medals. Ironically, we see here in Argentina, the DuPonts invested $788,000, and with the 51% holding, set up the EI DuPont de Nemours and Caya Argentina SA, where they included Industrias Quincias Argentina de Periel Industrial Comercial. They also bought a $313,000 at 35% interest in the Society Franco de Ducio, and a $789,000 at 42% interest in the Compañía Sud America de Explosivos. Okay, in the closed, safe, stable Canada, the DuPonts made their biggest investment, pouring $10 million into Canadian Industries Limited for 46.8% holding. In Mother England, in exchange for Duco patents and processes, DuPont acquired 49% of Noble Chemicals Finishes Limited and bought 819,000 interests in Leather Cloth Propriety LLT. In 1930, they made another large sale of processes to Noble Finishes, England, or then it to Noble Finishes. England was also the site in 1925 of General Motors' acquisition of Vauxhall, the auto firm. A year later, Pierre DuPont expanded General Motors directly overseas, opening an assembly plant in South Africa to slip behind the Commonwealth's tariff barriers and to also exploit the cheap wages enforced by his racist white Afrikaner government. In 1926, the DuPonts also bought a 22.9% interest in the Society Francaise Fibricode, controlled the fibercoid markets in French and North African colonies of Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco. And you see right here they invested with Mussolini. Okay, the rising Axis powers also proved to be good business prospects for the DuPonts, who were represented in the munitions hearings by the former, the future head of the CIA, the founding father of the CIA, Papal Knight of Saint Sylvester and Knight of Malta, William Donovan, right here, devout Roman Catholic, here representing the DuPonts. Actually, and you see Irene DuPont. I'm going to show you the picture, but Irene DuPont in this photo has his pipe in his mouth, and you can see a picture of him smoking his pipe at the munitions hearing. Okay, I'm going to find that. You see here, Mussolini's well-ordered Italy looked so attractive to the DuPonts that they invested over $1 million in its chemical industry, buying 70% of the Society Italiana delle Cellulose and 90% of the Society Ammonia Matricucelli. Guys, this is the same Italy that the Vatican in Italy signed the Lateran Treaty with fascist dictator Mussolini. Mussolini was given 3 papal medals, and Pope Pius XII called this new fascist dictator Mussolini, quote, the divine man sent from Providence, end quote. And here you got DuPont investing in Italian munitions companies. And actually, you know what? I found this on the internet. This was in Italian, but this is proof here. This is the book here that I'm reading out of. But this is on the archives of this company here. This is in Italian. I'm gonna see if I can translate this. But this is the archive of the Society Italiana Cellulose. And you see here right here. You see here DuPont, and you can see here DuPont produced production here in Italian in 1927 here. Okay, DuPont bought 70% of the firm. here's some of the Here's some of the advertisements here. This is the Italian Roman Catholic, or under the Italian Roman Catholic dictatorship of Mussolini. This is one of the biggest uh, celluloid uh, oil gas firms in the country, and DuPont bought a 70% stake. Okay. Let me see here. So check out this book here, in case you see some of their history there. This is DuPont Dynasty behind the Iron Curtain. You know, I think William Donovan is mentioned in this book here. Oh, it's not letting me change tabs, so it's loading. Okay. Well, I'm gonna show you the picture again here. Yeah, here's DuPont with William Donovan. Okay, and here's a picture here. This is from the CIA's website. You see here, a look back, General William Donovan. Okay. You guys, he was nicknamed, quote, Wild Bill Donovan. Okay. You see here, Donovan was born in 1883, Buffalo, New York. He became from a family of devoutly Catholic Irish immigrants, which influenced him to want to become a priest. Okay. Donovan attended St. Joseph's Collegiate, which is Roman Catholic, and here's a picture of St. Joseph's Collegiate right here. Okay, which is a St. Joseph's Collegiate Institute, founded in 1961 as an independent Roman Catholic college preparatory school for young men. Okay, in Buffalo, New York. Okay, so William Donovan was educated at Roman Catholic schools. Okay, he went to Columbia University and Niagara University, where he played on the football team and was a member of the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity. You see that William Donovan, the founder of the CIA, Roman Catholic, was also in this fraternity. Okay, there it is right there. Okay. Philanthropy, it's involved with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. That's concerning. Okay. You see here, Donovan joined the National Guard in 1912. Okay, then he also served on the Mexican border in 1916 to fight for the American oil companies and Edward Doheny. And even DuPont, have you seen, just I read to you, had interest in Mexico as well. Okay. During World War I, Donovan served his country again when his regiment was called in the Federal Service. Became part of the 165th Regiment of the U.S. Army. Okay. You see, he fought during World War I. Fought alongside Theodore Roosevelt II. Or upon returning to Europe, Donovan, alongside Theodore Roosevelt Jr., was the co-founder of the American Legion, which was just nothing but like a pre-founder to the American Liberty League, which is a fascist uh, organization that actually uh, attempted a coup, a fascist takeover coup in 1934 in the United States, with General Smedley Butler as he. General Smedley Butler was going to become like they were going to take over the United States fascist Mussolini style and install a general as a dictator. But before Butler did it, like he kind of had a moral change in position, and he exposed the whole operation and actually wrote a little book called War is a Racket, and he exposes the whole munitions industry and War is a Racket. Yeah, you see here, Donovan even established his own Wall Street firm called Donovan Leisure and Newton. Okay, and you see here, so you see here, he Donovan was a very well-traveled individual. Through his love of travel, he entertained many leaders of world intelligence. And this is the guy who's representing the DuPont, supposedly in a trial that's going to, in a supposed, objective trial where the DuPonts are going to be incriminated with when evidence is presented. They're the future head of the CIA, William Donovan, Roman Catholic, who is out here meeting with all these world leaders, is the DuPont's lawyer. So obviously, like the DuPonts didn't get there zero incrimination that came against them, and all the Americans munitions manufacturers got away scotch free. But you see here, Donovan traveled a lot for pressure and for his corporate law clients. I repeat, Donovan traveled a lot of pressure and for his corporate law clients. Who is one of his corporate law clients? Oh, right here, the DuPonts, who had money, money invested in Mussolini's Italy. So let's see here. During these trips, he met with many world leaders, including Benito Mussolini of Italy. Yeah. You can't make this shit up. Okay. Um, and dude, he ended up becoming or you see here Donovan influenced Truman to sign the National Security Act. He became a U.S. ambassador to Taiwan. He was the U.S. chief prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials, which saw that tons of war criminals went off scotch free. For example, Alfred Krupp, who's essentially like the DuPont of Germany. Krupp was on trial for war crimes, and he got off scotch free and went right back to making cannons in Germany. Yeah. Okay. You see here, you got a Medal of Honor too, which is an inverted pentagram, just like the Church of Satan logo, which is interesting. Um, let me search this here. I know Donovan's mentioned in this book, just as quickly as the DuPont lawyer. Bear with me. Yeah, and even on Wikipedia right here, yeah, he actually just like DuPont had money invested with the Chinese dictator Chiang Kai-shek. In China, Donovan struggled with Chiang Kai-shek and his underlings for permission to carry out espionage activities in their territory. Unbelievable. The OSS was carrying out essentially CIA missions in China under Kai-shek. Okay. Um, he was involved with Douglas MacArthur. Even the OSS recruited Carl Jung, who helped with the effort to analyze the psyches of Hitler and other Nazi leaders. The same Adolf Hitler that was given the Man of the Year by Time magazine. Okay, and you see here, Donovan set up espionage and sabotage schools, established front companies, arranged clandestine collaborations with international corporations, aka DuPont and the Vatican, and oversaw the invention of new espionage friendly guns, cameras, and bombs. Donovan also recruited agents, selecting individuals with a wide range of backgrounds, ranging from intellectuals and artists with criminal backgrounds. He also hired a great deal of female spies as well. And these are recruits here into Donovan's aspiring. He even hired actors. Yeah, that's funny. And you see here, yeah. So this was mentioned in the DuPont dynasty. Munitions here. So this is back on the 1934 munitions hearings. The munitions hearings had revealed some of these deepening ties. Henry Fletcher, contemplated DuPont lobbying agent, became Republican national chairman, and William J. Donovan, the former head of the CIA, Roman Catholic, former assistant attorney general, and the man picked by the Republicans to oppose Hubert Lehman's, Roosevelt's benefactor and political protege, for the New York governorship in 1932, became the DuPont's lawyer during the munitions hearings. Okay. And there's the picture right here. Okay. This is what I wanted to show you. And here's some more information on the DuPont family from Abro Manhattan's book, The Dollar and the Vatican. See, I recommend you read Fritz Dyson's book, I Paid Hitler. See, I'm going to see if anyone's in the chat. Give me a second. Seeing if anyone's written anything. Okay, yeah, okay. Bush was a CIA. Yeah, but actually, you know what? In this book here, the DuPont dynasty. If you're still watching Electric Cow, Bush, when he was running for the Republican ticket, he was actually running against Pete DuPont, governor of Delaware. So like with the fix in, like George Bush was a skull and bones. He comes from a descendant of Prescott Bush, who was a Skull and Bones, and Prescott Bush actually funded the Nazis as well with the Harriman family, the Harriman clan. They're all Skull and Bones, Bushes and the Harrimans. And George Herbert Walker, who is George Bush's great grandpa, was educated at Jesuit Stonyhurst College. Yeah, yeah. So the whole thing, like, I really recommend you read this book because it goes into the relationship with DuPont or Pete DuPont and George Bush. And George Bush was given an honorary degree at like the University of Delaware, which the DuPonts control. And in the photo of Bush getting his honorary degree from that university, there's two DuPonts in the background, which is kind of funny. Hey, Blue, how's it going? So yeah, this is interesting information here, though. So I recommend you read this guy's book here, Catholic Fritz Thyssen. He wrote a book called I Paid Hitler in 1941. He is biased because like he's a devout Roman Catholic, but he talks about how like he funded Adolf Hitler, like in the book. You see here, the DuPonts, for instance, cooperated with Catholic Fritz Thyssen of the German Steel Trust when Thyssen led the German cartels and big business to pour out millions to Nazis and to thus put them into power before 1933. Wendell R. Swintz, director of the foreign relations of the DuPont Empire, testifying before the emissions investigation, had to admit that Krups was like the Nazi DuPont munitions developer. Quote, Krups had, quote, developed a scheme whereby industry could contribute to the Nazi fund, and in fact, every industry is called upon to pay 1/2% of the annual wage and salary roll to the Nazi organizations, end quote. I.G. Farben was connected with the great parallel American industries and was the backer of Hitler's Nazi outfit. Felix DuPont did not stop at cooperating with his German counterparts. He actually armed Hitler. Actually, you know what? In this book here, I'll show you the guy's name. James D. Mooney, of General Motors executive, was actually given a medal by Hitler, and it's even on his Wikipedia. And he says here his career was disrupted when he was accused of Nazi sympathies in 1934. But James D. Mooney was actually given a medal by Hitler. Okay, it's official. Ironically, I think I saw that the James D. Mooney papers are now available, like at Georgetown University. Okay, which is funny because Georgetown doesn't want people reading those papers. You see here, the DuPonts, Felix DuPont armed Hitler. This after Roosevelt was elected, but before he took office, and while the Oracle Hoover was still president. Felix DuPont signed a contract. Let's see here. Felix DuPont. Oh, I lost my page here. Oh, give me a second. Oh shoot. Give me a second, guys. I lost that page. Um, here the DuPonts invested $250,000 with Knight of Columbus Democrat Al Smith. Actually, and they invested $250,000 with Herbert Hoover too. You can't lose if you fund both sides. You know what I mean? Uh, I think I. How did I lose that page? Here. Here it was. Here. Yeah. Page 59. Guys, if you want to read this book, I made a video on it, but like this book is really hard to find. Just send a comment in the video, and I'll send you a PDF of this book for free. The Dollar of the Vatican. Yeah, on February 1st, 1933, with an agent of Hitler, Peter Bremer, who is actually an international spy. That's Felix Dupont met with an agent of Hitler, Peter Brenner. Dupont appointed Brenner an alias Guerra for the purpose of smuggling munitions into Germany via Holland. As this time it was illegal to do so, the contract gave authority to Brenner, an agent for Germany and Holland, quote, to negotiate the sale of military propellants and military explosives to purchasers located in that country, end quote. Letters in the hands of the Nye Committee prove that Brenner and Colonel W. N. Taylor, who was DuPont's agent in Paris, and Major Casey discussed means of smuggling explosives in the Nazi Germany, quote, to run guns up the Dutch rivers into Germany, end quote. This, it should be noted, was against all restrictions laid down in the Treaty of Versailles and by the interference in the treaty between the United States and Germany. Allied to the Americans were the British. Lamont DuPont got a reply on March 6, 1933, from the British munitions magnate Lord Gowan of Empirical Chemicals concerning the illegal arming of Hitler. Quote, our German friends have not been idle. I am sure that when freedom to manufacture is granted for home use, they will expect to have a permanent position in the business. End quote. After using their agent to supply Hitler with explosives, the DuPont sent Brenner to Japan to sell American explosives to the Japanese militarists. And just like the Nazi big business, the DuPonts armed Japanese big business. As well, I showed you they armed like in the I don't think I covered it, but in the book you'll see that the DuPonts armed Franco's regime, they armed Mussolini's regime that I showed you, they armed Belgium, they armed Argentina, they armed Yugoslavia. Ultimately, they probably armed Ante Pavelic, they armed Yugoslavia, and they armed the Ustashi movement. Okay. You see here, DuPont sent Bremer to Japan to sell American explosives to Japanese militarists who had just began their aggression against China. And ironically, guys, DuPont funded China as well. They funded the regime of Chiang Kai-shek, which I covered earlier in this video. And Chiang Kai-shek was given the cover of Time magazine, just like Hitler and just like Stalin. Okay, let me see if, you know what, let me see if, because William Donovan met Mussolini too. Yeah, Mussolini, of course. Of course, Mussolini's gonna be on Time magazine. But yeah, Mussolini was on a bunch of Time magazines, who the Duponts invested with. They invested into their uh, Societe Italiana Celiode. Look at Mussolini, who actually had a Jesuit confessor too, Father Taci Venturi. Mussolini was on like 4 Time magazine covers. Was he given a Man of the Year, the weekly news magazine? You know what? It was a quote from, you can read in this book here, The Dollar in the Vatican. Myron C. Taylor, who is a papal knight of St. Lazarus and St. Martinus, just like J.P. Morgan, who is so, like Taylor and Morgan were very intimate with the DuPonts. But Myron Taylor has a quote saying that here today, like during World War II, like in America, we get to witness like the beauty of Mussolini disciplining the nation. Okay, talking about disciplining Italy. Taylor was a fascist. You see here, okay. This was not the first time that they, the DuPonts, had armed Japanese militarists. They had already concluded very profitable deals with them. To give one typical instance, in 1932, DuPont got $900,000 from Mitsui, which was like the Japanese DuPont, for nitric acid ammonia explosives formula. Okay, the Senate committee further disclosed that DuPont agent Peter Brenner was a professional spy who, during the First World War, had worked for Germany in 13 countries. And this, it should be noted, against the USA. And guys, this is the same West Germany that actually after Germany was collapsed. West Germany then was led up by devout Catholic knight Cardinal Eidenhower, who also made Time magazine. But Cardinal Eidenhower was a Knight of Malta, an Order of the Golden Spur, um, a Knight of the Order of the Golden Spur, and he was a Knight of the Supreme Order of Christ who rehearsed Catholic Mass daily. Okay, and in West Germany, with the super Catholic leader, former head of Hitler's intelligence service, Reinhard Gehlen, a Knight of Malta who actually went on to found Mossad. Reinhard Gehlen was then contracted by the Central Intelligence Agency, who I call the Catholics in Action, or the Catholic Inquisition agency. But Reinhard Gehlen was contracted in West Germany to work for the American CIA to counteract. Essentially, he was used to fight all the opposition to the Christian Democrat government at that time, which was led by Eisenhower. Okay, the corruption's everywhere. Okay, indeed, Brenner was one of the top spies employed by that German super agent. Um, let me see here. Yeah, so indeed, Brenner was one of those top spies employed by a German super agent operating in the USA, that super Catholic Franz von Papen, who was the Knight of Malta and was Hitler's vice chancellor, who at the time when the DuPonts were supplying explosives to Hitler, and this is Franz von Papen, had become Hitler's vice chancellor as DuPonts were supplying explosives to Hitler in the newly installed Nazi regime. At this period, Vice Chancellor von Papen, leader of the German Catholic Party, and only second to Hitler, had in fact enraged his old employee as a link with the North American dinosaurs to give teeth to young Nazi Germany. this one was dealing with, but this was the only one of the dealings that the DuPonts, the Morgans, and the Mellons and others conducted with European and Asiatic fascism. Okay, this was only one case. Okay, so you want this book? Let me know in the description. I'm gonna send that to you. Check out this book here, The DuPont Dynasty by Gerald Colby. And guys, you see here, DuPont literally armed the world during World War II. And who is their lawyer during the munitions hearings? Well, it's the future head of the CIA, devout Catholic William Donovan. Okay, let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find that picture of him smoking the pipe. Where's the pictures? Yeah, there's a. Let's see if I can find that because it just shows you kind of like the whole thing. And I actually, guys, notice how all these like I think the Duponts were Masons. If you guys are still watching, notice this. You see how the Duponts are doing this hand in the coat picture, just like Jesuit Pope Francis did the hand in the coat picture. Karl Marx did the hand in the coat picture. Friedrich Nietzsche did the hand in the coat picture. So many players throughout history do this. Napoleon Bonaparte did this hand in the coat picture. Um, yes, well, I think a lot of the Duponts were connected to the Masonry as well as the Catholic Church. Yeah, here it is here. So guys, look at this picture. Irene DuPont blowing smoke rings while facing the Senate committee during munitions hearings. I'm just gonna leave that up for like 30 seconds. I've been talking about that for a bit early in the video. But guys, this just shows you how much of a mockery this Senate committee was. Like, look at that. And actually, in the photo of Irene DuPont, in this photo with William Donovan is holding his pipe still in his hand, and Pierre DuPont, who was best buddies with John J. Raskeb, a papal knight of Saint Gregory and Saint Knight of Malta, was also on Time magazine, is in this photo as well. Okay. I think I'm just gonna read. I'm gonna read one little page here on William Donovan. Okay, this is from Avro Manhattan's book here, The Murder in the Vatican. Here, I'll show you a screenshot of it in case you want to buy or want to look for the book. You can find this on the internet for like $20. Really good information. Kind of goes into the murders of Pope John Paul I. This is what it's more about. But that was an absolute conspiracy, and he connects it to the Roberto Calvi conspiracy. This is page 270. Head back to the screen share here. See the picture of Donovan up with DuPont. You see here during World War II in 1944, for instance, Pope Pius XII decorated General William Donovan with the Grand Cross of the Order of St. Sylvester, a reward given only to 100 other men, quote, who by outstanding deeds championed the church, end quote. Guys, William Donovan also met Mussolini. Here's a source here that's saying that during his reconnaissance mission in the 20s, Donovan met Adolf Hitler at Berchtesgaden and spent an evening with him at his room at Pension Mortis. Okay, that Donovan later claimed he had not known who Hitler was, but he had found him a fascinating talker. Okay. Um, check this article out here, but like this kind of goes into Donovan's intrigue and equivocation. Hoover, then you see here, Hoover took Donovan to the Bohemian Club, which is located right by the Jesuit San Francisco University. Okay, so check out those connections. Check out. I think I linked this in the description. Okay. Donovan was also connected with the Rockefeller Foundation. He's connected with the Council of Foreign Relations. Okay. He's yeah, very connected with Roosevelt. Okay. You see here. The significance of Donovan getting this Order of St. Sylvester was in that the fact that Donovan had served as a chief of the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which was the wartime predecessor of the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. And that's why, like I said earlier, Reinhard Gehlen, a Nazi intelligence officer, a Knight of Malta who founded Mossad, actually ended up being contracted by the CIA, working in West Germany under the ultra-Catholic administration of Konrad Adenauer. Earlier in the war in 1941, Donovan had already forged an alliance with the founder of a Catholic intelligence agency called Pro Dio. The two agencies collaborated during and after the war to such an extent that eventually they amalgamated. This resulted in the de facto integration of the CIA and the Vatican intelligence into the global USA Vatican apparatus, whose operations now encompass the globe. The amalgamation operated in favor of the advancement of the Catholic Church in the political fields at home and abroad. And that's what the DuPonts ironically built a Catholic Church in the 1850s. It helped the promotion of the presidential candidates in the USA and the promotion of potential papal candidates in the Vatican. The Vatican CIA spying operations have assessed both presidents and popes during the last 3 decades and acted accordingly. For instance, they considered Pope John Paul the 20th or Pope John the 13th as quote politically naive, Pope Paul the 6th as quote dangerous, and Pope John Paul the 1st as quote a costly mistake. That's why Pope John Paul the 1st was assassinated by the Jesuit-run CIA apparatus 33 days into his pontificate. Okay, this is the special 33 number. Okay, it's not a coincidence they chose to kill him 33 days into his papacy. Okay. And this book actually goes into also how Pope John Paul I was going to look into some of the shady financial dealings of some of the American archbishops. One in particular, Archbishop Cody of Chicago. The secretive USA Vatican collaboration, furthermore, had made possible by the fact that prominent officials of the USA government were also prominent Catholics who integrated the interests of the USA with those of the Catholic Church and vice versa. Okay, this process was culminated during the first and the second terms of the Reagan administration. To mention only a few in key posts, you got George Shultz, Secretary of State, Donald Reagan, Chief of Staff of the White House, Robert McFarland, National Security Advisor, and William Casey, Director of the CIA, all Catholics. Okay, and that's just a short list. Okay, very short list. For the four most powerful men, second only to the President himself. The secret quasi-amalgamation of the USA with the Vatican intelligence eventually was officially sanctioned with the USA-Vatican Diplomatic Exchange of Ambassadors in 1984 under the Knight of Malta, Frank Shakespeare, who is the head of the CBS Corporation. The head of the CBS Corporation became the first Vatican American ambassador in 1984. I'll look into that Pizzo creating the Pope. Um, yeah, I've read some interesting. I don't know if you've read H.P. Blavatsky, Blue Blood, but she's made the case that like the popes essentially completely like plagiarized um, rites from like ancient India. Essentially, go back and like the ancient mystery rituals, like the Indians referred to as like the initiator in the rituals as like the Pontifex Maximus, and essentially like she says that like uh, Blavatsky says in Isis Unveiled that essentially the popes have like mutilated this like Hindu tradition with like the mystery rituals. But yeah, I'll look into the the Pizzo family thing. Yeah, I gotta get some water. I apologize though. Yeah, so here I think I'm gonna end this video here. You see here Irene DuPont blowing smoke rings in the Senate. Check out this whole book, DuPont Dynasty. I read in the beginning of the video DuPont's history of who they invested with World War II. It's pretty shocking. They invested with the whole, they funded both sides of the conflict, guys. Okay, and that's why they didn't get into any trouble, and they had powerful future head of the CIA, Catholic William Donovan, as their lawyer. Okay, yeah, I think that's all for this one. Peace and love, YouTube, and Namnas. Take care.